Hello and welcome everyone to Brains on a Budget, and let me introduce you to Vijay, my new BMW E87 project car. Cue the montage. So let me show you around the car a bit. Vijay is a 1 Series 120D engine. It's late 2007 car, which means it's the facelifted model, or the LCI as BMW call it. This is an M Sport package, so we've got some kind of sportier details, slightly larger wheels, the sporty sills, the ever so slightly sportier front and rear bumper, which I think adds quite a bit to the car. But that's kind of where what I like about the exterior ends. We've got some horribly faded paint. It looks, especially on the bonnet, it looks appalling. Paint on the wheels is starting to chip off. I think that's because of a mixture of a bit of a close encounter with a curb, and also because they've been resprayed at some point and pretty poorly. This little umbilical cord at the top is horrible, the radio antenna. Definitely going to want to get rid of that. All the badges are fading. They almost don't even look like a BMW badge anymore, and there's like stone chips and kind of what you'd expect for a car of 13 years of age and 110,000 miles. So let me show you the inside as well. So like with the outside, we've got some of those M Sport touches in here, like the steering wheel, gear knob, these kind of split leather and fabric seats, which are quite nice because they kind of hug you in a little bit, stop you moving around. Everything's quite nice and sturdy as well. No kind of rattles or movement when I'm driving. That's kind of where the positives end. It's really starting to, you can really feel its age in here. I don't mean that in a dated sense. I mean in the fact everything is worn out. Steering wheel, the leather is almost peeling off. Same with the gear knob. I almost don't even want to touch that. Armrest, all the padding is worn out. We've got splits and rips on the bolstering here. And yeah, it looks really, really tired. Buttons on the infotainment center, if you can even call it that. Like, there's just no kind of clickiness to them. You press it and there feels like, chewing gum behind it, and it's horrible. But yeah, that's enough complaining of the inside. Let's take it for a spin. Let's start them up and go. So what's Vijay like to drive? Well, he drives pretty well. Being a diesel, you've got some nice torque, kind of down low in the rev range, and that really helps with pulling away. You basically get this kind of, it feels fast, but it's not super bad on fuel, and that is the advantage of having a diesel. It does feel a little bit, the closest thing I can compare it to is it feels like if Vijay was a human, Vijay would be a smoker, and that's what it feels like, because he's missing, it's like he can't take a full breath sometimes. And I guess the comparison is quite true there, because this is a diesel car, it's quite smoky, and I'm sure, the intakes, DPF, his breathing system, I'm sure is a bit clogged up. Handling is nice and sharp. The balance of this car is really quite nice. And on top of that, you've got the rear wheel drive, and that's really why I bought the car, because you get that sportier feeling through kind of being pushed out of the corners from the rear. And I think it's one of the only kind of rear wheel drive small hatchbacks that you can buy. If you want anything else, you're really limited, at least, sub £5 grand, and relatively economical. On the topic of economy, it might be cheap to run, but it's not cheap to insure. That's partly due to my age, and there being a lot of similarly aged people who decide to put these things in hedges. Thanks to those people. But on the kind of the fuel economy side, being a diesel, it should be pretty decent. Now, I only get about 45 mpg on a long run when I'm being careful, and that is in the winter, to be fair. But I think it's capable of doing better, and again, that might be to do with things like we've got a knackered battery on this car, that kind of the breathing system of the car, the intake and the DPF being slightly clogged. These things might all be related. I do think there is one key thing missing on Vijay. Most people buy these cars as motorway mile churners, and that's because they're quiet, they're comfortable, and they're economical. But I feel on something like that, what you need is cruise control, and that's the one thing that this car is missing. It's got auto dimming headlights and it's got auto wipers, but it's not got cruise control, and I think that's really missed. And it's actually one of the things I'm going to be looking at retrofitting. So if that interests you, if you want to add that to your car, I think the procedure is pretty similar for these kind of similarly aged BMW, 1, 3 series, maybe 5 series as well. So we're going to be doing that, and hopefully parts and all the Cody software and stuff we need, we should be able to do it for under 100 quid. So stay tuned for that, and that'll just transform the car, because then we can stick it on a motorway and just let it do its thing. The other thing that's really annoying on the motorway is, for some reason, the speedo on this car, it only goes in increments of 20s, which I'm sure is really useful when you're in Europe and you're going down the roadways there, because most of their speed limits are in 20 km/h intervals. But here in the UK, we've got 50 zones are really quite frequent, and then on the motorway you've got 70, and it just means you're trying to do 70 miles an hour and you don't have a number. You have a kind of like a pronounced line to try and follow, but you don't have a number. And I know that sounds really petty, but it's really frustrating for me, and it just makes it that much harder to see what you're doing. And again, that might be something that cruise control can help with, because then we can get the digital display going, you can click it up to 70 and just stick there. So now that we've stopped here, this is a pretty good opportunity to talk about what's quite a divisive subject, it seems, and I think that's surprising, is stop-start function. For some reason, and I kind of understand it, a lot of people hate the stop-start. Yes, it will wear out things like the alternator and starter motor quicker, and no, it won't reduce or increase your fuel economy that much. But this is a stinky car. I've sat on the back when it's on, and it's not a very nice place to be. So I understand that when you're in town, you stick it into stop-start mode and you come to a stop in traffic and the engine cuts out, because you don't need it on then, assuming you've got a battery that works. And I think that's what makes this even more ironic, is because I like stop-start, but I can't use it because my battery is so knackered that it won't let me. With the battery, what seems to be happening is, I think there's a parasitic load on the battery. Over time, batteries do fail. Of course they do, just with everything, they wear out. But the way in which this one kind of, it just seems to drain so quickly. I'll fully charge it, I'll stick it on the charger overnight, turn it on in the morning, and I'll have it, not even the car on, have the ignition on for maybe a few minutes, and I'm already getting a battery warning signal. So I think there's something on the car that's drawing energy when it shouldn't be. So we need to sort that out, and that's one of the things I'm also going to be looking into. Because it's not much use if I change the battery and that's still occurring, because although the battery will last longer, or a newer one will, it'll just completely kill the battery in the exact same way, and there's no point in that. So in terms of fault codes, it's an older car, it's bound to have some fault codes, and it does. One of them is the battery. not a surprise. Other ones I've got are the fuel heater. I think there's a heater unit before the fuel filter, and this is designed for colder climates where, probably lower than minus 20 degrees, where the diesel might start to thicken up a little bit, and then eventually the fuel pump won't be able to move it from the fuel tank to your injectors, which is not much use. But in the kind of climates that we get here in England, that's not going to be a problem. I might change that out, but if it's expensive, then there's no real point. The other one, which is quite a common issue, is glow plug fault codes. It's not clear what is the kind of root cause. Often it can just be a glow plug that's gone faulty, just like spark plugs, you're supposed to replace them every so often. I imagine the ones in this haven't been replaced ever. So, they've got 110,000 miles on them. And they really help with the ease in which a diesel engine starts, because they help heat up the combustion chamber, and when it's cold, that's the difference between the car going kind of dun 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 dun, and eventually switching on and coming on in a matter of half a second. It cranks a couple of times. Sometimes it can be the fault of the glow plugs that have gone bad, but it seems that another common problem is the glow plug controller. So that is basically a little computer unit that decides when the glow plugs activate and how that all works. It seems to be quite common that fails rather than the glow plug. So you can replace your glow plugs, you can still have a glow plug warning light. So we'll look into that, we'll try and diagnose that, find the issue. I'll probably replace the glow plugs just to be on the safe side anyway, because as I said, more than likely they're knackered. So it appears I've been driving so long that I've ended up in Mexico. So I'm going to take this opportunity to just do a quick little 0 to 60. So bring it to a stop and bit of traction control kicking in there. And that's 60. So it's got some good grunt. Try not to run this cyclist over. It feels, it's more than powerful enough for the road, and that's just helped by that low down torque delivery. It doesn't sound great, I'll give you that. You get that kind of classic diesel rumble, but that's the price you pay for economy. So as you can probably tell, there's lots to do with Vijay. He's a pretty unhappy chappy at the moment. First things first, we're going to do kind of routine maintenance, so oil change, filter change, that kind of thing. Sort out that knackered battery, find out what's the problem with it, and then kind of restore it back to its former glory, if he ever had any. Freshen up the paintwork, maybe refurbish the wheels, have a look into things like the suspension and brakes, look at cleaning intakes, DPFs, all the kind of notorious diesel things. And I'm going to be filming all of those, so you guys can learn from what I do right, what I do wrong, which will probably be a lot. And if that excites you, then hit the subscribe button down below and like this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.